Hello, my name is Hubert Bennett. I'm the Implementation and Training Manager for the Statewide Longitudinal Data System. This session will be on the Gifted Eligibility Form. Now, I'm going to take this from the very beginning. Realize that many people that listen to the recording may know something about the Gifted Eligibility Form. Many others may not. So we're going to start from the beginning. We're glad you're here. I am going to change my screen over to a regular teacher dashboard in SLDS, and I am in the notorious now Dundee school system. As you see there, it is a standard. We're going to go in first off from the teacher dashboard, and then if time permits we will actually show you the admin dashboard briefly. Before I jump into the gifted form itself, no one has access to the gifted eligibility form, and I am hovering over the gifted eligibility icon. This has to be provisioned to specific users. So you may be wondering, well, why don't I see this? If your data person or if your SIS coordinator person at your district hasn't provisioned the gifted eligibility access to the specific people, then that tab will not be there. If that is the case, then you can reach out to me, Hubert Bennett, or have your data person or SIS coordinator, and I will work with them to get that created. One of the early pieces that we realized we had to accommodate for is that typically under FERPA guidelines, teachers are only allowed to see students that are on their roster. This is, like I mentioned, this is the teacher dashboard. This would be the teacher's roster. Because of the special nature of the gifted eligibility form and the relationship of that with the gifted teacher, it's understood that teachers will be testing students that are not yet gifted. So they need to be able to see all students within the building that they're teaching in. Now, to adhere to FERPA guidelines, we're giving them only limited access. The gifted teacher will only be able to see the student's name, GTID number, date of birth, and of course the school that they are currently enrolled in. So that's all they will be able to see for every student in the building. For them to see more information about those students, or any student, they will have to have those students on a roster, or in many places around the state, that gifted lead teacher and like the gifted, the lead special ed teacher, it's not uncommon for those lead teachers to be given access to the school-wide data. So the lead gifted teacher or the lead special ed teacher might have access to the school dashboard inside of SLDS, which would give them access to every student in that building. We're not requiring you to do that. We're not promoting you to do that. We're just saying that a lot of places do that. That is a district's decision. As a teacher, as a gifted teacher in the correct setup, the teacher would have this gifted eligibility form. They would be able to see every student. They will be able to search for every student. I'm going to go ahead and click on the gifted form here. They would be able to search every student in the building, but they only see limited information. This teacher that I'm going to use as the example here, she's at Avery Elementary School. We're going to talk about a bunch of these things, but as we progress, starting off with, let me just mention, you can put in a GTID number. This is where a user puts in their GTID number of a student, not a name. I've had places sitting there and say, well, I can't pull the student up. I'm putting in their name here. Well, this is for GTIDs. If you put in that 10-digit GTID number here and hit the little magnifying glass, it will bring up that child automatically. If not that, then you have these other drop downs, and you can choose, you get to choose options here, all students, or in progress forms, submitted forms, not eligible, and eligible forms. And we'll talk about that more in just a couple of minutes. But you see you have an option here. You also have an option for different years, okay? This would be the years that the forms were created. The hardest thing that most users have with this is understanding that this gifted eligibility application is dealing with the gifted forms, not necessarily gifted students. Okay, so it's real necessary for you to realize when you pull up a list here, yes, you'll pull up all the students, but it's not going to show that any of them are gifted, because what we're looking at is whether you have a gifted form or not. Now, once you look at the form, then once you create a form, then you would be able to tell it whether they were eligible or ineligible for gifted services. But this is actually, when you're searching here for the in progress, submitted, and not, you're actually looking for the forms that represent that, not the students, okay? So this is only forms. Now, a teacher only has the ability to do her school. Now, when we get over to the admin level, you will see that admins will have access to all the schools. They can also limit their search by grade level, and then they can also limit, say if I choose 4th grade here, the next drop down actually is by name. So I could use the drop downs to go to a specific child if I wished, or in this case, I'm going to just do all, and I'll hit the go button, and this should pull up all of my 4th grade students, all the 4th grade students at Avery, not just my students, but since I'm a teacher, but all of the 4th grade students at Avery. And as you see down at the bottom of the screen, there are different tabs, different page numbers that you can go and scroll through the various students, the list of students. But when the screen first comes up, you'll see a list of the kids. Now, if I had only done one child from this drop down, it would only be showing the one child. But since I did all, it will have all the students listed. I'm showing student name here. As you see, this is a 9000 GTID number. These are, since this is in my Dundee school system, these are obfuscated GTID numbers, but that is one of the pieces of data that even the gifted teacher will see. Avery Elementary. Now, this is showing the status as being in progress. So obviously, at some point in the past, I or one of the trainers have actually started a gifted form on this student here, but haven't completed it because it's in progress. There is no eligibility date yet for this child. And then there are 3 icons here. Let me explain these 3 icons briefly for just a second. Here's the eyeball, so if you wanted to just view. Now notice how I hover over it, you can see view this record. Or if I wanted to edit an existing in progress record, I could edit the record by clicking on the pencil, or I can delete the record. But let me caution you here, as a teacher, I am a submitter. Okay, I can only submit data to an approver. As a submitter, I can edit the record as many times as I want, as long as it's in progress. Once I click on that it's submitted to the approver, I, as the teacher, can no longer edit that form. The approver can, but I, as a teacher, cannot. Also, as a teacher, as long as it's in progress, I could delete that form if I wish to. But again, once I have submitted it and I caution teachers to not submit until they're ready to get that final approval by whoever approves it at your district. When we built SLDS, we understood that when we built the gifted form for SLDS, we understood that there are vast differences among districts around the state. So we had to build it in such a way to where it would handle or accommodate almost any setup. There are some places to where the teacher at a school is also the approver. It is possible to set up the gifted eligibility form that way. If that's the way you choose, then we would work through setting it up that way. But typically the idea is that you have a submitter and then you have a person or a group of persons that are approvers. Generally speaking, school level and school-wide level, that's, someone that's over the whole school, and district level people, they are automatically given the approver right or the approver permission. Now, an approver can also submit, and they can submit and approve, but a gifted teacher that has the role as a gifted teacher is only a submitter. Sometimes that can get a little confusing. But as a submitter, I can only edit this or delete it as long as this is in progress. If I am an approver, I can edit or delete this as long as it is either in progress or submitted. Once I approve the record, once that record becomes eligible or not eligible, then that record is in there permanently. Caution needs to be taken, before a gifted eligibility form is finalized. And let me also throw in here at this time, once a form is finalized, then that form will be available to any district in the state that actually claims that student's GTID number. So for that example, there in Brooks County, if you guys fill in a form, complete it, if the submitter submits it, approves it, and then finalizes that form to being eligible, and that student moves from Brooks County to, say, Walton County, where I'm from, Walton County, as soon as they claim that student's GTID number, would be able to see the gifted form that was created down in Brooks County. As soon as the form is finalized, it is available to be seen by other gifted personnel around the state if they claim that student's GTID number. But that's really how you read this. Just kind of scrolling through here, you see that there are most of the students, of course, if you haven't done anything in the gifted, then all of your students will be showing up as new. Remember, that's not a new student, but a new form, okay? Since no forms have been created for your school yet, if you haven't begun using gifted, then all the students will be showing up as new. Once you actually create the form, then it goes into in progress. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pick a child here, this Wilbert Bachman. I'm going to select that Wilbert and then scroll down to the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to hit add. You see the add button here? This is where I'm going to add a gifted form to Wilbert. Now, I mentioned to you a few times this gifted teacher role gets to search every student, but they only see limited information. This is the only information that they can see. Now, please know, I realize that this doesn't tell you a whole lot about Wilbert, and it might be helpful for the person that's making the determination on Wilbert to be able to see all the other information. That's purely a district's call how much information they may want to give that gifted person, okay? But inside of this application, as a submitter, this is all they get to see. And the idea here is just that they make sure that they get the right student pulled up so they can see the date of birth and the GTID number of the student, because it'd be terrible if they entered the data on the wrong child. But looking at this screen here, one of the first things up at the top is eligibility date. That's not a required field from saving. It is a required field on submission. So when I'm done entering the data for this student, whether it's today or whether it's, you know, next week when I come back in and put in some more data, or 2 or 3 weeks from now when I put in more data, when I, as a submitter, when I try to submit this form, I must have an eligibility date. Now, currently it says eligibility date. Soon, and maybe at the time when you are watching this recorded webinar, this may now be changed, because we are going to change this level, this tab right here, this label, to something like determination date. The reason is you would be, we've had some places not like the idea of putting in an eligibility date on students that are ineligible for services. So we're going to change that to determination date, because even if the child is ineligible, there will be a date that was determined. So, and of course, we want to encourage districts to not just enter data on the gifted students, but on all students that are tested. I can't gauge by the look on your faces there that's watching this, but normally when I share that in a live environment, I get some big eyeballs and things. But the reason we encourage all students that are tested is that in most places that I have been, and maybe you can start doing the math inside of your head, but in most places I have been, there are far more students tested that are not qualified for services than there are students that qualify to be received gifted services. Okay? With that said, we think the gifted directors that were determined to build this application that they required, that they taught me and Bob Swiggle into building the gifted application, what they were saying is that how powerful it would be for that regular ed classroom teacher to be able to see this information on students that someone at some point thought that they should be tested for gifted. For example, you may have a child that performed very, very well on an assessment, and they might be highly creative, but from a motivation standpoint, they just don't get it done. Well, that could be powerful information for a regular ed classroom teacher. Not to say that maybe the next school or the next year when they're in a different environment, maybe that new gifted teacher at the new location, they may look and say, well, wait a minute, he qualified in all these other areas. Maybe I can help him with his motivation skills and so forth. But we think the data on the students that are not eligible will be every bit as powerful for the regular ed teacher as the information to the gifted teacher. So there will be a lot. And again, that's just talking about changing this from eligibility to determination date. But you don't have to enter that until you're ready to submit it once a determination is made. When this screen comes up, you have a couple of options here. This is purely for record keeping. It's no accountability to it. This is how was the referral, automatic, reciprocity, other, just whatever kind of records you would like to have in there. And then below that, you have 4 criteria areas. You have the mental achievement, creativity, and motivation. Now, in each of these, you have the ability to select one of the approved tests that are available here in Georgia as an approved test. Now, let me just mention, we do not regularly change these tests. We have each August, we have worked with the gifted department and confirmed that the tests are still available or not available. So as of this past August, these are the tests that the State Department, the gifted department at the state said these were the available tests. But now you notice every one of them does have an other. Let me strongly encourage you to, if you come in here and you go, well, I can't find my my SAT test, or you may call it a particular thing, look for the official name, because I've had a lot of people to come in here and say that such and such weren't in here, but then it was because they were calling the Stanford test something differently. So just kind of take the first times that you look through here, kind of gander through these and see the official names of these, because that's how they're listed, okay? But let's just take, for example, in this sample here, we're going to put in the, let's do this. Let's put in the Kaufman test, the Kaufman assessment battery. All right. When I select the Kaufman, I have a date of the test. So there's a little date picker here, so I can choose whichever date picker I want, and I can actually scroll back through here. I can actually click on the date there and actually jump like so. I can do all sorts of ways. You just kind of play with that date picker to pick the right time. Or I could actually just type in the date as well, okay? So you see I'm just typing it in. All right. And I hit enter, and that's unfortunate. It changed it because that was what I had selected on the calendar. But I can type that in. The Kaufman only requires one composite score. I think that's what the C stands for, composite. And then let me minimize. There you go. I minimize my screen down a little bit so that everything's on the screen. And then you choose whether it's in the 99 percentile or the 96 percentile. Let's just say this was a 97. Okay, so this child was in that 96 percentile. And please bear with me. I am not a gifted expert, okay? So I may say something. I may use a percentile that's different for a particular category, but you guys are the experts, okay? Let's say this is an 82, okay? It needed to qualify by 96 percentile. So in this particular case, the child did not meet the criteria. You see here it says met criteria. No. Well, what in the world? Am I done then? You might be. However, we built this also to where understanding that sometimes in the gifted, you could come back in and retest in another testing application. Now, again, we are not telling you to change anything that you do. We're not telling you that you have to retest them. We're just saying we're told that some places do allow for that retest, so, or a different test. So we have that ability in here. Now notice when I choose the COGAT test, I have the date, but now I have 5 different scores that I could enter. Now, this is another area where some places say, well, what is that PC? I don't have a clue what that PC is. But from what we put this in here because some places in the state use a partial composite. So you have verbal, quantitative, nonverbal, composite, and then a partial composite. We're not saying you have to have something in every single one of those. This is a record-keeping place. Whatever you use, that's where you put in the data. So in this case, let's just say this child took the test on May the 25th, 2016, did a 96, 96, 96, and I have no clue if these scores are anything close to being what it should be, okay? I'm just plugging in some scores. This child was 96 from the 96 percentile level, and this child met the mental ability criteria here. So I'm going to click yes because on the COGAT he met criteria, or he or she. Okay, just in case, guys, I mentioned to you how here in this one eligibility determination window, this child was tested in these 2 different areas. Now, not to be confusing, but if I did not have this, if I did not allow the cognitive one in here, if all I had was a Kaufman, they did not qualify. I finalized the report. It was done. That becomes history. And then at some other time, maybe if the child transfers to another school or another school district, the next school year, if someone determines then that, okay, well, wait a minute, I see improvement in this child, we want to test them again, then you would actually create a second form. So each form for that determination window of time would become a static historical document, okay? And here in just a little bit, I'll show you how you can see, well, wait a minute, does that mean that you can see history? Yes, I'll show you here in just a little bit how you can see historical data on a child if, the form has been turned in. Remember, we're looking at forms, not necessarily when or whatever they were gifted, okay? But this, where I'm adding 2 on the same form, this would be in that same determination window, okay? But now, those are the mental tests, and in achievement, I'm not going to show all these because they all work about the same way, but you see, this is the list of achievement tests here. And again, let me just encourage you to look through these and read through them, and something you call by an alphabet, you may find it will be spelled out here. So before you choose other, look real close until you get real comfortable with this so that you're not adding it in as an other. Let me just show you. If you do other, you have a window box that you can just type something in and then type in a date, and then there's only one score there. And then, so this is kind of arbitrary. You can do alpha or numeric numbers in here because we don't know what kind of test it is. So you just do whichever you like, and then you could choose yes or no, met or did not meet criteria, okay? But each of these areas have an other. Now, I'll just click here and show you the tests that are in creativity. You see the tests that are in creativity. And then in motivation, here are the areas there. Now, some places, well, actually now many places have actually gotten to the place where they have gone back in and put in historical forms. Now, we are not telling you that you have to go back in and put in students that were gifted 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, but many of the districts have taken it on themselves to do that because in most of those cases I'm aware of, the teachers are the ones that actually chose to do it because they really like the idea of having everything in one place. But that's totally your call. But the reason I mention that is that some of these places, 5 years ago, there may have been a test administered then that a child qualified based off of that's no longer in the drop down because it was so long ago. Put it in as other and type in whichever you like. Or sometimes they were referred to as portfolio driven. Okay, well you can put in other and put portfolio in the text box. So again, this is a record keeping process, not an accountability thing. The DOE is not using any piece of this for accountability purposes. It's solely a record keeping thing. Okay, but those are your 4 areas. Now, once you do that area, then you choose. This is another place for the submitter to put in to help the approver to make that final determination. Student is eligible. Once I choose is eligible, you'll see the screen opens up and it has a number of different ways. Students eligible through mental ability, 96. Students eligible through multiple criteria, 3 of the 4. Reciprocity. If you do reciprocity, then you can also choose. Now, in my training site, these are, fictitious school districts. But in your real stuff, this will be all of the school districts in the state of Georgia. So you can actually identify which district they came from, or there is also that proverbial other. So if there's some other reason, you could always hit other. Now you can also choose student is not eligible. If I'm finishing this up, if for some reason I have found all this stuff and this child is not eligible, then I just hit is not eligible, and there is no other options there. I mean, it's, you know, of course they didn't meet the criteria. Now, the next piece is an area where a lot of questions come up, and honestly, guys, this is completely up to you. This is a local decision kind of thing. We have, and we've got the first one labeled administrator. Now, the DOE is not or not telling you to put in a principal's name, okay? We're just using that as a difference between, that's going to be the lead person, whatever. Now, if you want to put a principal's name in there, you're perfectly fine to do that. Some districts, they do like to have one of the principals, assistant principals or something, as being the point person for everything going on in that building. That's perfectly fine. You can type in whatever you like. You can type in any name there. Then you have additional members. Now, we are not telling you that you have to change any way about a team. Many districts, most districts, do have a team that determines it. Depending on your location, you may be the sole person that makes that. So if it's only one person, then fine. Just put the one person. You guys, this is a local decision on how you guys want to make this. But in this case, if I wanted to put in here that Danita Hinckley, which is one of our SLDS trainers, was one of the members, then I can do that and say I can come in and do Sandy Metz, which is another one of our SLDS trainers. I could continue to add members to this eligibility team all that I would like. Now, let me just kind of throw in here something else. I had one district that they liked to get signatures of the team members, okay? You can always do something like this, okay? So that on the printed form, it's actually going to come across like that, and you could actually have that team member to sign on that line, okay? So that's your eligibility team. And again, that's local decision how you guys want to use this, all right? Now, before I save this, and since it's at this part of the screen, let me just point out to you, if this child had some gifted forms from the, or as far as history, if there was previous forms, it could have been previous this school year, last school year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, there would be a link to as many forms as there are down in this area. So I could go in and I could pull up his form from the previous district, or his form that was created 2 or 3 years ago at a district that he was at, you know, way back then. But that's where that individual history would be for that specific student. Now, in this case here, I'm going to save. I'm going back up to the top of the screen. I'm going to save this, and I can edit and save as many times as I like. You notice here it says eligibility data saved successfully. I had one district the other day tell me, said the reason they weren't using gifted form is because there was no way of editing data. And I sent back to them. I said, well, I'm sorry, may have been misunderstanding, because you can edit data and you can delete data up until it is finalized. So as a submitter, I can come in here and I can change data and save it as many times as I want to. Now, once I, as the submitter, once I'm done, once I have entered all the data I want to, then I would hit the submit button right up here, and then that takes it out of my hands, and that is actually giving is a signal to the approver that form is complete one way or the other, and that they need to make a determination on that particular form, and then they would either mark it as eligible or mark it as ineligible. Then it becomes final. Then at that time, then it cannot be changed. Okay, but as a submitter, as long as it's in progress, I can change this form as often as I want. I can also print it as often as I want, and there's a print button here. Let's see if it's going to work for me here. There you go. Sometimes my training site is just a little slow. So this is my printed form. This is my printed form. So you see it has the data there at the top. In anything, now this is saying referred by the parent. Here are the scores that were put in, and yes, it's showing stuff from a whole different student, but that's because of the training site thing. Because of the obfuscation of names changing and protect the innocent and all this kind of stuff. But notice down here at the bottom, this is where the team members will show up at whatever I had entered, okay? So when you bring yours up, it will be the exact student. This is just a training site thing where it just pulls up a student, okay? So this is the form. Now, you can save this in several different ways. If you wanted to, you could actually push this out to Word. Of course, now because I'm sharing my screen on this recording, you can't see the Word document, but there's a Word document that comes up, and then in Word, I can actually edit the form. I could go in. There are some districts that go in down here at the bottom, and they put in a little notation, this is the data we use to determine students' eligibility, and put a signature line in there for a parent to sign. There are some districts that do that, but you can do that if you push this out to Word, or you could push this out to PDF, which is a static copy of this form, and that could be your paper copy. Because a lot of places still struggle with the idea of not doing things on paper, but you could actually enter the data into this and then print this out to a PDF and then print it on your printer, and that could be your printed copy, so your paper copy of that. So now these other areas, you probably don't really want to use those, but hey, feel free to use whichever one option you want to. But there is the PDF and the Microsoft Word. Okay, so I'm gonna close this. I've hit save, and let me see, I got to move my screen a little bit. All right. So when I'm done with this student, I hit the X button there, and I come back to this list, and now you'll see that Wilbert is showing as in progress. Okay? So if I wanted to now, I could view the record, or if, say, next week, I've come in here and I've entered those two areas. Remember, I entered the Kaufman and I entered something else. But say if next week is when I'm expecting to get the test for creativity, that's when I'm going to get the, let's just say, the Torrance test back. That's when I'm getting the Torrance results. So see, this is an example of I don't have to enter all the data on the student at one time. I can enter one test today, and I can go back in and edit tomorrow and put in another test. I can come in here and put in 05-15 2017. I'm not sure what these score ranges are, but you guys know better than I do. Yes. Okay. And now I can hit save. All right. Or say, for example, I decided, well, wait a minute, I need to take away that Kaufman test, so I can do that as well. So I can edit all this data and save it as many times as I want, okay, as long as I have not submitted the data. So I'm going to close out here, and I'm going to come back in here, and you'll see this. Now, let me now point out to you, because we talked a little bit about this, and you'll see that Keitha is showing up here several times. This is because of this is in our training site, okay, guys? But you see this clock? This is indicating that we have history for this child. So you may come in here, and some of your children, you may have 4 icons: the eyeball to view, the pencil to edit, the X to delete, and of course you can only delete it if it's in progress, or the eligibility form, or I'm sorry, the clock, which shows that there is eligibility. So I can see that, wait a minute, there's 2 previous reports for this student. And this is just an example. Say, like, if this was when that child, now forget, if you will, that this is showing 2017, because this is, again, training site. And this is us just playing around it. But let's just say Keitha in 2015 in 3rd grade or 2nd grade was tested. That would be the static test from there. And then when they were in the they moved to another district in 2016, and they were tested there. And now they're 2017. They're at my district. But I can always click on the eyeball and pull up the form that was used at that time to make the determination, okay? So by clicking on the clock brings up all the history for that student, okay? Now I can, and notice I don't have the pencil and the X button, you know, to delete something, because once it's finalized, I can't edit or delete it. But just to show you, I'm on this child's form now. Now, how I scroll down to the bottom, remember that brand new one we were entering? I told you down at the bottom where it showed the history. This shows you how at the bottom of that form, if there is history, it will be showing up on that particular child, okay? So I'm going to X out there. I'm going to, okay, I have now gone in at the district level. This is district level SLDS, and again, has various tabs in here. This gifted eligibility form will only show up for the ones that the gifted eligibility has been turned on for. So if you think you should have the gifted eligibility, the ability to see gifted forms, then and you do not see the icon, then your SIS coordinator probably needs to look at setting it up a little better. But I'm going to click on the gifted eligibility form from the district view, and it looks exactly like a teacher view, with the exception, the big exception is that I get to see all schools, okay? I get to see many, many different schools. So if I'm the district person, or even if you're at a place where there are school approvers, and there are some districts that do have that. They might have an administrator or something at each school that approves gifted forms, or however, depending on whether the setup is correct or not, then you will have this. But an approver is also a submitter. So if I wanted to, in a small district, there's only one person that does everything. Okay, so if you're at a district and you're the only person in the district that does all the gifted stuff, and there are many districts here in the state that are like that, then you could submit a form and approve it, okay? So let's take that example again, that the school has let me at the district level know that they have done a form or several gifted forms. So as a gifted director or coordinator, I could come in here and say, oh, okay, Avery has told me they have put some forms in there. So we've got, now they can search one kid at a time if they wanted to here, or we've got this little filtering thing in there. The teachers also had this, but this is where it comes in real handy for the director, because they can go in and say, okay, Avery says they've been working on it. Let me go in here and see what Avery's been working on. Okay, so by filtering here, I can see all of the forms for this year, for 2017, that Avery has in progress. Okay, so I can see that they obviously are working on some stuff. Now, if I wanted to, I could also see which ones they have submitted. So once submitted means that the teacher is done with it, and now they're expecting me to do something with it. Okay, so here are 2 forms from Avery Elementary that have been submitted. So the teacher's telling me that these forms are ready for me to do something about. So I have several options. I can go in here and look at it. I can go in here and edit it, or I could delete it if I'm the approver. I can delete a submitted form, okay? But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to, okay, the record cannot be edited. Please contact the approver. Oh, I didn't log completely out. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on one second. Give me a second. I have switched over to just showing the, in this case, the in progress students here. Here's the student when I was pretending to be the submitter, I was doing Wilbert. So see, I can look at, as a district level personnel, I can look at it, I can edit it, or I can delete it. Now, even if the teacher has only turned this in as in progress, say that teacher here in another couple of weeks, she leaves school, at the end of school, she leaves and she, and you send her an email and say, well, wait a minute, you still have 3 students or 4 students showing up as in progress. What are you going to do? She's done off the clock. She's out of, you as the approver, you could still come back in here and you can actually go in and finish this. You could finish this form for her. Of course, now we would mark this one as not eligible. Save. You have to save it and then submit it. Do you want to submit this form? Yes. So see, I just went through the submission process as well. That's exact same way a teacher would do it, but as the approver, I can also do that because I wanted to demonstrate that for you. So you can now see that student's not showing up here anymore, and the reason is because I have the in progress. So let's do submitted, because we just turned Wilbert over to being to being submitted. Okay, so now I'm going to select Wilbert, and believe me, guys, when you do it in production, when you do that, only you as the approver will have the ability to select eligible or not eligible, and then you would hit accept, and that's how you finalize the forms. Okay, right here, for some reason in the training site, it's not showing up. These boxes are still grayed out. You notice that, but in real life, that will be once it's submitted, these check boxes will be here, and you will, in this case, it's not eligible. You'll check it, and you can hit accept. Now, we built this so that you could do multiples at a time. So if you knew all 3 of these were ready and you were ready to approve all 3 of these, you could hit not eligible, eligible, not eligible, and hit accept, and that would finalize all 3 of those. Okay. And then the submitted would then become eligible or ineligible. And you could do your sorting and so forth from there. The teacher could still see those. She could still print those, and everything. And again, let me just mention, only when you finalize it, when you hit the accept button, will that form then be available to be seen by other districts. One other little piece of information I want to share with you is I want to go back to SLDS. Now, it's not this way yet, okay? But it will be done within the next few weeks. When you bring up a student, or when anyone pulls up a student, moving by next school year, there will be, once a form is finalized, just above this, on the student profile page, just above this window here for the student, there will be a hyperlink that will say Access Gifted form. So any teacher would be able to see that last eligibility form. So even if the student moved from, say, what we were talking about earlier, from Brooks County to Walton County will be able to see that student's gifted form from Brooks County, you know, even if they're just the regular ed teacher. They will be able to see it. They'd click on that link, and they would bring up that PDF copy of that report. All right, so just to point out to you, the thoughts are right now is a regular teacher or a regular admin just coming straight through the student profile page, they would just see the last finalized report, even if the child may have 3 or 4. That doesn't mean that they will be removed. The gifted person that has the gifted eligibility form, they will be able to still see 2 or 3 or 4 different forms, however many forms that child may have had over the years throughout the state. So the gifted person, through the gifted eligibility tab, will be able to see all history, but a thought is that we would just share the last one with the regular teachers and regular admins. Now, who knows, that may change at some point in time if it's requested that, you know, that the regular teacher would want to see all the history. We might revisit that. But I'm going to switch my screen over back to my PowerPoint, and so that I can show you. I'm going to leave this on the screen for a second, so it's contact information, so that you can reach out to me, email address, cell phone number, or if you want to request some training. And so there's a training link. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much.